Interstate Batteries offers a wide variety of batteries for your everyday needs. Stop into one of their thousands of retail locations and talk with a battery specialist about batteries for your truck, trail cameras, and even those weird batteries for your rangefinder. Interstate Batteries even offers cell phone repair in certain locations. For more information, visit interstatebatteries.com. Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable.
This is the Houndsman XP Podcast.
Good dog, get that bear. Get that bear
The
in here.
original podcast for the complete Houndsman.
Look at your coat of go, Justin Heights! We're gonna get him! We're gonna get him!
The podcast that represents our lifestyle of extreme performance.
Get up there! Get him! Get him! Yeah! Good boy! Good boy, Ranger!
Uniting houndsmen across the globe, from east to west, north to south.
You know, if you're going to catch a cat or a lion, you know, you have to have teamwork.
We take you to the wildest places on earth.
Yeah, so how many days a week you spend out there?
As much as I can, to be honest with you. Anytime that I get, I'm out there.
Join us for every heart-pounding adventure on Houndsman XP.
I'll tell you like I tell everyone else, I'm going to hunt whether you're here or not, so you might as well be here.
On this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Durrel Smith to our audience. Durrell is a cool guy. He is doing a lot of great things for hunting in this country and putting his work to good use for us on a lot of different levels. I'm just going to try to unpack a few of those for you. So, Durrell is the creator and host of the Sporting Life Notebook. That's a hunting dog podcast. You need to go check that out. He also is a writer, and he has written for several major gun dog publications across the United States. He is the CEO of the Minority Outdoor Alliance, and he and his wife run this nonprofit organization out of Atlanta. Their mission is to expose and introduce minorities to this lifestyle that we all love so much, and that is hunting. The African American community is the part of our society that is in the steepest decline for involvement in hunting and fishing and other outdoor recreation activities. And why is that important? Because as hunters trying to survive in this landscape, in this current culture, the metropolitan areas are voting against us. And every time Durrell can expose some of these metropolitan-based folks to hunting and fishing, it is a win for hunters. We are living in unprecedented times for divide and conquer tactics. And we see it every day. We see it on the news. We see it all around us in this world. We see it on our social media platforms. And we have to know where we can find allies and where we can find friends. And Durrell and his work with the Outdoor Minority Alliance has access to a segment of our society that we so desperately need to be supportive of our lifestyle. So this isn't a heavy conversation. We have a lot of fun. Durrell is super upbeat. You're going to enjoy this podcast. You're going to hear about old-timey stuff from the South and how the African American community championed bird dogs and why they did it, and recapture some of that vision down there. But folks, you're going to enjoy this podcast. Look up the Outdoor Minority Alliance on the internet. They're easy to find. Follow the Sporting Life Notebook on social media and reach out to them, follow them, and make yourself available They're our friends, and we need those friends today. Hey, the Old South Dog Box is rocking. Let's get the tailgate down. It's time to dump the box.
Especially on the other side, like it was clear to me, right? But
Yeah.
on your end, it'll drive you nuts.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Kind of echo and stuff like that. So I've had that happen before.
I can't process that kind of stuff, man. My brain doesn't work fast enough to do that. No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Nah, man. I'm not quick enough off the draw. Nope.
Yeah. Well, hey, we have got Mr. Durrel Smith of the Sporting Life Notebook, and this is part 2. We kind of built this up in part 1, Durrell. I hope your audience is tuning in over here, and hopefully my audience tuned in to hear part 1 over on your podcast.
I hope so.
But Durrell, just introduce yourself to the Houndsman XP podcast world.
Okay, so to the Houndsman XP podcast world, what is it? We come in peace.
That's right.
I'm coming out of the bird dog world, man. So the Sporting Life Notebook, the podcast, and now the brand it's grown over the last 5.5 years now. It was originally the Gun Dog Notebook podcast, and we had a really nice expansion and rebrand. But we are focused on, I guess if I trail my story, my personal journey into bird dogs, like bringing the unlikely to the outdoors, like, and showing people, you can kind of take an unconventional journey and get into this thing too. And I dove in neck deep.
How old were you when you got into hunting?
Did
you grow up with it, or what's the deal?
No, I wouldn't call hunting like shooting squirrels in the backyard. I did with my granddaddy, and my granddad was a postal inspector. So I learned about guns and stuff like that, like really young. And he taught me how to shoot, but hunting came from my interest in high school. I never got a chance to do it. Went to college in Red Hills, and I would see bird dog stuff kind of everywhere and didn't really get it. But it was really interesting. And then I ended up finding a mentor, Eric Morris. He runs a show, Non-Traditional Outdoorsmen now, but he took me under and pretty much showed me what that was like. And I was 25 when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I hunted behind his Chesapeake Bay Retriever. He had put some pin birds out for me. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and I was like, and so I ended up getting my lab. I had pit bulls before bird dogs, like for a few years before that. And I was just kind of training them, and they were kind of really cool protection dogs in a really informal, but really well-trained kind of way.
Yeah.
And that's just what we had down here in Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And so I got into bird dogs, and then I messed around and got my lab and hunted him wild quail down here. That was cool.
Was he a pointing lab?
No, he's just a flushing dog. Like, that's what I knew that would hunt,
Right.
I was like, if I'm going to get a hunting dog, I might as well get something I know was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lab. And then I ended up going to like a year later, I ended up going to like a Publix shopping center here, and I like their magazines, Garden and Gun, and so I ended up just kind of flipping through that magazine, just walking through the store, and I ended up landing on the photos of my mentor now, Neil Carter, and my other mentor and friend, Curtis Brooks. He actually gave me a dog, but I see these dudes, and they, beautiful stacked up white pointers, right? Like on the back of a tailgate. And I was like, dang, like, these old school, old head black dudes, like just swag, what I'm saying? Like, it was cool. I was like, dang, I want to do that. And it was, and the guy, Erwin Greenstein, was telling a story about this field trial club that's down in Thomasville. So I had to figure out who they were.
Yeah.
I was 26 when this happened. And that article and that journey from there made me want pointers. I ended up cold calling Sincola Plantation off the yellow pages. Like, I had to go.
No kidding.
I had to go to the yellow pages to get that number. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And now, I mean, it makes sense now why I couldn't find it anywhere. But I ended up calling down there. Mr. Gates Kirkham is a good dude, friend of mine. now he picked up, and I was like, hey, is Mr. Neil Carter there? And he was the subject of that magazine article. And he was like, nah, he just retired like last year. And I said, but I'll give you a cell phone number, man. And so I called Neil, and he picked up and was, you know how it is. Like, he was like, well, if you want to learn bird dogs, come on down. Like,
right.
You know, and I got there, and I see like 11 pointers and setters combination, mostly pointers, in these kennels. And I mean, they just roaring, right? Like beautiful white dogs though. And I was just in heaven. He gave me a leash and was like, get that one right there. And I pulled that dog out of the kennel. He about yanked my arm off, man. Like, and I like that, just that motor. I was just like, woo, I like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he showed me how to simmer that dog down and you know, get him pointing, you know, and just going through that history and learning more and more and more, you know, I figured out how deep like African-American roots are in bird dog history and really hunting dog and sporting dog history. Like, it goes deep, especially here in America. And I was just captivated by the fact that like this field trial club had been down here and they were like running really nice dogs, you know, and there's this whole other narrative and perspective of plantation culture, but like this story hadn't been told.
Well, man, there's a lot to unpack here. You and I started talking, a month ago or so, you know, just we covered, this is the teaser, and this is like the, what do you call this? A prequel?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the prequel for this.
Yeah.
We started talking about another issue that we covered in your podcast. And so you need to go check out the Gun Dog Notebook. Or I'm sorry, I did it.
Everybody does it.
Yeah, that's because that's what I knew it as. The Sporting Life Notebook Podcast. Go check out that podcast. It dropped last week. We've put it on our social media platforms. We have advertised it. If you haven't listened to it yet, you need to go check it out so you know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that to unpack here. But the other thing, and we'll get to this. I don't want to jump into this yet because I want to go back to something that you already said. But you also run a nonprofit organization called the Outdoor Minority Alliance.
Minority Outdoor Alliance.
Okay, I got that messed up too.
Yep. Everybody does it. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Minority Outdoor Alliance. We 2 for 2 though.
Yeah, we are.
It happens. So fun fact, I like messing with people with words, and like when in my writing and stuff like that in magazines, I like twisting and distorting words. So in my head,
yeah. I've got a whole different. We could go on about a story that my wife's been going through this week at work, doing the same thing.
Yeah,
and I've caught myself in it now. So the Minority Outdoor Alliance, we're going to get into that. I want to talk about your writing and the things that you've done there, but the main focus here. This is why. Durrell, you and I have gotten together is to collaborate, because there are so many things that bird dog owners, bird dog people do that are beneficial to houndsmen. Just because you're running a bird dog doesn't mean that you know, tips about socialization, about nutrition, about exercise, about handling dogs, all that sort of stuff is hand in hand, because we're talking about sporting dogs here. It doesn't matter whether it's a plot hound, a pointer, or a walker, or a setter. You know, there are transferable skills here between both of our crowds, and it's an opportunity for all of us to learn from each other.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, we talk about that. Like, I'm always in awe about what you guys do, right? Like, I just feel like y'all's work is totally raw. Like, it's like,
it's raw sometimes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't go, for me, like my personal challenge is like making sure that I'm getting some feedback. Making sure that I hunt wild birds. Like, that's my personal challenge. And so I get part of that comes from like me listening to interviews like Warner Glenn and stuff like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? In your podcast, and who was the dude that wrote the 2 tree dog encyclopedias?
John Wick.
John Wick. I have those 2 books.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I took a shot at having a hound dog, a little Walker hound, long time ago, and it just, I ended up having to rehome it. Like I don't think I got a dog that it was like he had the build but didn't have a bite, if that makes sense. He wasn't really bred right, and I tried to get him off of tried to take a shortcut, take the Craigslist shortcut.
Yeah.
And that one didn't work. Now I did that with my lab and it worked.
Right.
And so I ended up having to rehome that dog. But from there, I was just always really fascinated with houndsmen. Like, how is it that, like, again, you can't trap a bear? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't release, you know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of have to let that dog act on its own instincts, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, the thing you've got to do is put all the pieces together at a young age, same way that you do
same for bird dogs.
With bird dogs.
Right.
You socialize, you spend time with them daily, you develop the handling skills, you develop your the mentality, and you give them exposure in baby steps to certain situations. So many of the things that I've learned about training hounds came from police work and from I had a Chesapeake Bay Retriever and training retrievers and things like that. I was always a houndsman, but I always dabbled in other stuff. And so my training skills and my skill set really didn't all start, and I don't think it's ever stopped. So I hope nobody listens to this and thinks he thinks he's all right. I haven't. It never stops, but it really didn't all start coming together until I started pulling ideas and concepts from other trainers, from other types of dogs. And I found that they worked.
Right. And that's the thing, like, you have to study, other trainers and their methods. Like, a big thing that I like to try to understand, and again, this is something you guys understand really well, is scent conditions, right? Like, first of all, nobody's ever a scent scientist. Like, you never really know what's going on in that dog's nose, but you can learn habitat and learn the habits of that dog so closely that you can kind of get a sense of what's going on in that dog's nose. You know what I'm saying? And part of that is understanding, wind conditions and scent conditions. And, having that dog be successful is putting him in the right spot and, and using and letting that dog work the wind and learn, work scent. That's why I'm such a big into pointers and setters. I like a dog that keeps their nose up in the air.
You bet.
For me,
that's really what we look for in hounds as well.
Right.
There's times when a dog's got to dig its nose down in there and find that scent wherever they can in order to trail their quarry. But they've got to have enough brains that they don't keep it down there. Once they get it lined out, they've got to be able to pick that head up and go with it. And I'll give you an example of something that I learned. If you want to teach a bird dog to range out farther, do you hunt them with the wind in your face or the wind at your back? At your back. And that's the same thing I do with coon hounds. If I want a dog to take off and really get away from me, because a dog's nose is so amazing. It's like they see the things through their nose like we see the world through our eyes. As I sit in this room and I look, I see all kinds of stuff going on around me, all different kinds of colors. A dog takes that in through their nose and processes that all in their brains.
Story. Yep.
So when we're talking about getting a dog to range out, whether it's a bird dog or a hound, if you'll just take a second and set your training session up or your hunting situation up where you can make it a training session, put that wind at your back and send them out there, and they will get going because they know to use that nose.
They got to do that. And that's the thing. And the other piece to that is, and like I said, I love it because this is the one time where it's like super appropriate for me to ping pong and nerd out a little bit.
You bet.
You know what I'm saying? So I love it when I like my dogs to roll. You know what I'm saying? I like them to sail, especially down here in the Piney Woods. Like it's thick. You know what I'm saying? But there's enough room for them to really stretch out. Like I got one of my dogs, Jug. He 500-600 yard dog. And a lot of people are like, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? And he's still learning. But he, you know, I'm running him on wild birds, first of all. So any mistakes that, you know, he's going to make on those birds, not me. It ain't got nothing to do with me. But part of that is also with a dog that runs that big, he's horseback bred, like just let him sail and trust it. You know what I'm saying? Like just let a dog use its mind. If you bred it right and if you did your homework right, like if you got something studied as far as genetics, pedigree, and all of that stuff, then prove it by letting a dog use its head and get out as far as the country allows it to get out. Some dogs will go further than others. And trust that enough interaction, exposure, and engagement with birds is going to steady that dog up. And that dog will be sitting right around the corner and pointing for you.
Right.
You know, y'all, like I said, y'all send them dogs.
Yeah.
Especially the bear guys, like them dogs be gone. And and you just kind of got to roll with it.
Competition coon hunters really expect that kind of cast. You know, they should, a competition dog should leave you like it's late for work. And
I like that. I'm taking that.
Yeah, it should be leaving you on a dead run and just casting out into the dark to search for that scent. Whereas a bear dog, we do free cast bear dogs and things like that, but a lot of times it comes off a rig strike. We've got a track on the side of the road, and we're sending that dog on a track and letting them take it and drive on. But one of the things I want to ask you about, you talk a lot about wild birds versus planted birds or pen raised birds. And do you do the majority of your training? And I hate to even say, I feel like every time I go out to hunt, there is training involved. You know, a dog never stops.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, just a polish here, a polish there, just a nudge here. But as you are developing this young dog, you're using wild birds. Briar Creek Kennels is your complete hound hunting outfitter. Boots, lights, collars, and tracking equipment. Dog boxes, kennel supplies, collars, clothes, squallers. Whew, they have it all. Briar Creek Kennel is a Garmin and Dogtra dealer. Owner Chris Girth will ensure Briar Creek Kennel customers will get top of the industry customer service. Whether you purchase from their website or you find them at a major coonhound event, Chris and his staff will share expert knowledge and experience about every product they offer. Chris Girth is a top competitor and breeder of hounds. He knows what gear you need to be successful. Look for Briar Creek Kennels on the web for a complete online store or look at their fully stocked trailer at any major coonhound event. Briar Creek Kennels, offering a hound hunting public generations of excellence.
A combination, yeah. And more that than I am pen birds. Like first of all, I don't really like keeping pen birds like that because everything in the world be trying to get into the cage. And that's enough of a hassle. So if I can use them and be done with them, I'm really happy.
Right.
But with a young dog at about 3 months, I just let them run around and I'll take a quail. Like I think a pigeon is just too much for a dog that age. Some dogs are bold about it and some just aren't. And so I kind of don't risk it. And I hunt quail anyway. So why not just put a quail out there, a pen raised one? You can pull some of the flight feathers out of it so it can't really go anywhere. You know, fly up 10, 15 yards and land. And then you just let that puppy try to catch that bird and build up that drive. That is a controlled situation where you want to find out what that dog, you know, is going to do about pointing, what he looks like potentially, and all of that. Well, once I start seeing that dog pointing consistently and like snapping into it and jamming into it, it'll take either a month or two to really like get them into that. And then by then their legs are a little bit longer too, and they can start rolling a bit. I start putting in when I can, also appropriate to the season, if the timing is right, because I got to be mindful, like nobody's running wild birds 24/7. So when the season is right and I see that young dog starting to lock up on me, as far as pointing a little pin bird, and some of them birds, I don't even pull the feathers. I just let them fly off.
Right.
And after a while, I'll just start running them on wild birds and letting them run off, get out, however big they want to run, make all the mistakes. Like, let that young dog screw up. And the best place to screw up is on wild birds. You know what I'm saying? Because it takes the man-made element out of the interaction. And see, a young dog, you keep doing that. And it takes time, especially down here in Georgia. Like, it ain't like I'm just flooded in wild birds either.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I know where they are, and I've spent a lot of time finding them. And so I feel pretty confident about going about it this way. And then some of the other areas that I run my dog that are private also have wild birds. So again, it's a little bit of opportunity there, but I'll run my young dog on wild birds and just let them keep messing up and keep messing up and keep messing up. Eventually that dog is going to get tired of doing it himself and is going to wait for me to come in and get those birds up.
And when you're talking about messing up, you're talking about breaking point. You're talking about flushing before you get there.
Yeah. Like a dog is going to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, man, when you start talking about this, I hope people understand the reason I've got you on here is so we can draw those parallels between what y'all are doing and what we do, and have takeaways there and get that validation that it's not something that is exclusively hound or exclusively bird dog. We're talking the same language here because
we are, right. You mentioned it was incremental earlier, like ours is incremental.
Yep. So we start our hounds off the same way, and then we put them out there on wild game. That's the best way. You might get them started. You might get them locked in. You might see what kind of prey drive they have on captive game, but eventually where the rubber meets the road and where you really make that the true inroads and develop a dog is with wild game. And we see, do you see bird dog guys overdoing it on pen raised and captive birds?
Oh yeah. Oh man. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty of doing it once with my lead dog Vegas. And you also got to remember, we also have, you know how it is. You have some dogs that you can, usually that first one that was probably so good and became
that
good.
Dog tree.
Yeah, like they're good in spite of your mistakes. Like,
yeah.
Well, I did that a lot with my first dog, and he's since come out of it. He's older, and I don't worry about it anymore. But running them on too many pen birds, and it's like preserve hunts, and it's fun. You get to shoot, the dog's retrieving, and you see all these points. You can take a picture of it, and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's controlled. You know what I'm saying? You can and even with training, you know what you're getting when you're doing that, and you do that a lot. But what happens is that dog is eventually going to start figuring out that this is really not the game if it's hunting. You know what I'm saying? If it's hunting wild birds, you keep overdoing it with pen birds. And what happened, I was doing that and going back and forth a lot. And my dog actually, his point got way less intense on pen birds. He's kind of like that now, honestly. Like, he'll point for the most part pretty well, but if I run him on too many now, Vegas, he'll kind of be like, all right, dude, like, what's next?
Yeah. They get bored with it.
They get bored with it.
I don't think we understand. A lot of times we overlook, as trainers, that a dog can get bored with what they do. And
they're always looking for that next challenge. That's what gets a dog to point, is a dog not being bored with game and running and trying. You're taking a dog with intense prey drive and trying to kill it. Essentially, you're having that dog essentially where it would be creeping to then pounce on game. You're just having them stop, right? But that dog, the reason it's pointing so intensely like that style, is because it absolutely loves its job, but is not dumb enough to move and see them birds fly away.
Do you think a bird dog, can you compare that to like a hound treeing? I
Yeah.
believe that a hound that trees gets an endorphin dump, and they get that is their, it's bred into them, it's genetic, but they go into another zone at that point. I don't care whether it's treeing or it's pointing. There's just a debate about recessive traits and recessive genes. And somewhere along the line, pointing birds or barking up a tree is a recessive trait that was capitalized on.
Right.
And because that didn't come from wolves. Wolves don't stop. They don't point.
They don't. They'll stalk, but they're not going to point.
Yeah. They don't get up on their prey and think, okay, I'm going to stop and point.
Right.
Or and they're not going to tree either. So there's another parallel.
Yeah, you just keep moving.
Yeah. Open on track. Wolves don't open on track when they're hunting. The wild canines don't.
If you want some skinny wolves, you open right on up out there in the wild if you want to.
You bet.
But
you bet.
I agree. It is a recessive trait, and I've said that, and I pretty much live by that. That's another reason why I really don't.
I don't think it is now in our current breeds, but at one point it was.
What, as far as the recessive trait, it's a dominant trait. Yeah, we just capitalize on a recessive trait. Right. Absolutely. We just repeated it so many times to get the dog to point, to get the dog to tree. I think it gives a dog on point a high. That's why I really don't care that much.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, like I think that a dog on point is at its absolute, like, adrenaline or dopamine, whatever that is, like raging through his body. And so for me, catch this, for field trialing and for guided hunts, and I just run a flushing dog and a retrieving dog so I can keep my pointers on point. And it's kind of a tradition down here too. Well, what happens is that dog, in my opinion, okay, that dog doesn't actually have a taste of a bird in its mouth. So the last exciting thing for it is being on point. You see what I'm saying? And so you get you
can see the wheels turning over here.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and this is something that I think, but like if a dog doesn't have a bird in his mouth, think about it. Like, if you're a predator, the end goal is to have a bird in your mouth, right? But as you're approaching something, I'm thinking that, like, look, that dog, just like you kind of waiting on the big game, right? Like, you kind of like, it's the buildup. Well, what happens if we pause a dog in the absolute climax of that buildup when it stops, and we just break that dog to stop right there? You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's when it's like super pretty, right? Like, that's when you get that dog on style.
Let me circle back around here and make sure I'm picking up what you're putting down on this. So you're running a retriever separate from your bird dogs.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just try to get a ballpark here. You've got a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old dog, pointer that is consistent in pointing birds, and you're out there and you're hunting with a retriever. How often?
I usually run 2 dogs at a time, 2 pointers and a lab at a time.
Okay, so taking that scenario, your dogs point, your lab retrieves. How often do the pointers get a bird in their mouth?
Out of 10 times, 2.
2 times.
And that's 2. And I'm saying that because I don't let my dogs retrieve, but Vegas, because he was just a natural retriever anyway. Like, as a puppy, he just kind of would walk around with sticks and stuff in his mouth. I kind of just let him, like, go for it. Jughead, the other dog that I run with Vegas, everybody likes that name. But that's my big boy, and he was gifted to me by Curtis, who I mentioned earlier. But Jughead, I don't let retrieve. And this is what's weird. Consistently, I do not let my dogs retrieve. Now I ran Jug once without my lab. I was just, working them because I believe you got to work dogs separate and dogs, together. Like it's a trade-off. And I was actually wild bird hunting them, matter of fact. And it was just it was him and my buddy's pointer and his Munsterlander, but those dogs were elsewhere doing something else, and Jug ended up going on point wild bird flushes, and I kind of turned. I wasn't even expecting it, and I was actually trying to toot my own horn. I was trying to take a picture of the dog actually, and just kind of threw a Hail Mary shot up there, shot the bird, and it falls down, hits the ground, and runs into a hole. And tries to die in a hole. Well, Jug, and I don't practice with this dog at retrieving at all. He sees the bird, he stops it, like he's still on point, sees it, and something in his brain just is like, go get it. And I think he saw that bird run in a hole and might have known that I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And he breaks point and digs that bird out of the hole, gets it, retrieves it, brings it to me by hand. And I've never worked with that dog on retrieve.
Just a natural thing.
Yes.
It's time to draw a parallel again, because I see the debate rage at times about, let's take coonhounds, for instance. How often should I knock coons out to my dog, my young dog? And the reason you are not allowing dogs to retrieve, your pointers to retrieve, is because you think it ramps up their prey
point
drive. It ramps up their point. I've seen the same thing in hounds. I really have. You take if you start my own experience here, and somebody's going to argue with me, but this is based on my experience watching. If my dogs will tree, they'll get sloppy around the tree. They'll get sloppy on locating if the only their form of reward is by getting fur in their mouth.
Right.
If my dogs are much more accurate into the into the spring when our hunting seasons are out and training seasons are in, where I can't shoot as many coon and things like that, they actually tighten up and they want to be more accurate. And I believe that just like you, that the dog that is bred properly self-rewards by treeing. And we can overdo it. And I'm sure false points and things like that are common.
It happens. And a puppy's false point, dude. A good dog false points.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they all do it. For anybody to say, now you have certain dogs that they have certain traits that make it a little less questionable whether there's a bird there or not. Right. Like, and that's part of getting to know your dog, putting your hands on your dog and no, I got 6 of them and I know each and every last one of them little jokers quirks.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? With Vegas, like, and this is a thing that to most people, particularly in competition, and I had to figure this out. It took me a while to figure this out. Like, when he would point birds. If birds were running, which they do a lot of the times before they fly, he would flag on point. Like, he wouldn't tense up. And then I would tap him on the head. He would, relocate, creep a little bit forward, tight, flag again. Those birds were still running. Tap him on the head again, and he'll keep relocating. And when he's got them pinned, he'll jam up. And it's like, but Jug don't do that. When he points, he's just on point. It's just what it is. But what he is doing, if birds are running, he'll block for me. Like, he's starting to basically, if I've got a hedgerow right here in front of me to my left side, and we're walking down, right, and it's a covey of quail running in there, well, he'll basically go point like perpendicular to him. And if they run again, he'll break that point, relocate, point again, and basically block and stay a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
And he's starting to learn how to do that. But that's a wild bird thing. That's something that,
right,
You know what I'm saying? Like a dog just develops its own quirks on birds, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got its own kind of algebra going on.
Right.
I
I think we've drawn a really good parallel here
think so.
between bird dogs, what you guys deal with in bird dogs, and what we deal with in hounds. And I want to kind of shift gears a little bit because we've got a lot. Like I said, we got a lot to unpack here. But tell our audience what you're doing with your organization, your nonprofit, the Minority Outdoor Alliance. That's
well, thank you for letting me chat a bit about the Minority Outdoor Alliance. But what we are doing, what our goal is expanding the narrative of the outdoors through education, engagement, and media to form a multicultural community, right?
that wasn't a very smooth transition either, was it?
Look, I like it. It was cool.
Okay. All right.
Because I got, when you talk about a lot to unpack, I can unpack Minority Outdoor Alliance. So, it's just one of those things. I want to form a multicultural community of like really dope, lifelong outdoor professionals,
mm-hmm.
In various capacities. The way that we have it, we built Minority Outdoor Alliance, or we founded it rather, myself and my wife, Ashley, when George Floyd was murdered in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And we had at the time the Gun Dog Notebook, and that was doing really well. And we were partnered with Project Upland, and they basically gave me a platform to talk a bit about, my thoughts on policing and law enforcement and things like that, and that whole scenario that was there. But my take was policing in the outdoors. And so that became its own deeper conversation. There was a whole podcast for that. Well, we got really good feedback off of the live stream that we had done.
Mm-hmm.
And, Project Upland was like, wow. And we had ended up getting a lot of support just for people understanding that like the history of the outdoors has very much so deliberately and intentionally excluded African Americans, but yet as a culture, we are inherently connected to the outdoors. And so I wanted people to understand that, and it was not an exclusive.
In what way? You say inherently connected to the outdoors.
When Black folks got brought here from Africa, particularly West Africa, like let's start with South Carolina, because I'm going to South Carolina soon anyway. Charleston, like the whole Geechee culture and all of that stuff, that was South American slaves that were brought over here, and they were brought here to basically cultivate the South American landscape because they had the knowledge to do so somehow, and they could actually withstand the conditions and things like that. So we were always outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And we were always learning the landscape. Like my other comparison, and I wrote an article on this on the Minority Outdoor Alliance website. Think about Harriet Tubman. Like that lady would have had to have known the outdoors to make that trip, the Underground Railroad from Macon to Nova Scotia, as many times as she did. You knew the outdoors. We've always been connected there, even with bird dogs. Like the thing that the folks that got me in the bird dog history, their story hadn't been told. And we're talking about hundreds of years of just outdoor interaction, and eventually being put in a situation where we either had to learn, how to raise and train and break horses and dogs because it was better employment, during the days of the plantation, like
Mm-hmm.
the early days. And that was a thing of pride. So like we've always had, you got the first Kentucky Derby winner. I think his jockey was black.
I didn't know that.
If I'm not mistaken, he was black.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing that this is what I wanted to tap into. I think American culture by default when they start thinking about bird hunting in the South. They see the white man with a dog and his shotgun, and that is the connection that most people make. When in reality, the plantation owner or the farmers and their friends were coming down and taking dogs that black people were taking care of and training. They were. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So it was a thing of when you worked on a plantation down here, there was specialized labor, right? Like there was a specialized skill set, and that was kennel management, habitat management, you know what I'm saying? And being a kennel master, like the dog man. And that was, it was a job above, picking cotton, right? Like you were a man. And, even I've got a book here about Pebble Hill Plantation, matter of fact. And they talk about this guy named, I think it was Mac McQueen. If I'm not mistaken, his name was Mac McQueen. And it's real life accounts of living on Pebble Hill Plantation. And Mac McQueen was that dude. Like he was the dog man.
Right.
And he trained hounds, he trained bird dogs, and what I'm saying and like that was the thing. I mean, I can go back to like 1860 to 1880 with Charlie Young. That's the furthest back, African-American man that I know that like got introduced to training bird dogs when plantations had just come into, like, the plantation culture as we know it had just come into Thomasville, Georgia, right? And like, he was seeing that, and he had gotten a job as a dog man for one of these plantations, and he had made the trip from here.
This is post emancipation.
This is 1860, yeah, right around that time, post emancipation. Okay. Yes.
All right.
And so he had gotten that job, and it was cool. He was like, man, this is, he was going out to King Ranch and stuff like that. He was just like, man, this job working dogs got me off of the plantation and traveling the world. Like, dang.
Houndsman XP is very proud of our partnership with the organization Freedom Hunters. Freedom Hunters is a nonprofit organization that takes America's veterans hunting from field to field, from the battlefield to a field near you, when you volunteer your time to take America's warriors hunting with you and your hounds. It's easy. Go to houndsmanxp.com, click on the partnership tab, and it will take you to Freedom Hunters. You can go direct to their website to make donations at freedomhunters.org. Support America's heroes. Let's pay it back. Visit Freedom Hunters at freedomhunters.org, or go to houndsmanxp.com and you can find them on our website. From field to field. Check out Rough Cut Company at roughcutcompany.com. Here's how easy it is. You take pictures, you go to their website, you upload those pictures, they laser engrave those memories onto native hardwood, and it's a beautiful piece. I just had one made for my wife for our anniversary, and the detail, the quality, the finish, everything about this piece is heirloom quality. This piece will be in our house for a long time. Go to roughcutcompany.com, and at checkout, enter the promo code HXP 10% off, and you will get 10% off of your next order. Check them out.
And so it was a thing of pride, right? Like, and so then you have some of the greatest scouts in field trial history here. Black, Man Rand, Pet Kelly, David Johnson now. You got handlers now, that Mike Hester, he's my buddy now. And I'm talking about on the big boy circuit, like the all age circuit. Like, we've been, like very present in there. And Man Rand was one of the greatest dog men, hands down. Anybody would, and I got like old black and white photos of him like working dogs. And that was in Alabama. Like when you come down here to the South and the Southeast, we have just a very rich culture of black dog men that just knew a dog. You know, it was a really good job, but it was a job that you didn't want to lose. And so based on that pressure and a good amount of that adversity, they got really good at training dogs.
Right. And that's lost. I mean, that's lost on the hunting culture, you know, from where I sit. You know, I just don't, I've never drawn the connection there. And then since I've gotten more into it and studying history and talking to you and talking to some other people, I've realized how rich that heritage and culture is. And so through the organization, based on that information that you have, what have you seen that needs to be done? Why start an organization? Why have you done it? I mean, why are you doing all that?
So a couple of reasons. Number one, because voice and storytelling and authentic representation matter. Like, let's start there. The reception that we got from our film, Dogmen, that we did in partnership with Onyx, like that history, it's stuff like that the general public mostly didn't know about, and if so, had kind of looked over, right? So it's giving voice, and the reception to that voice has been resounding, right? But then, you know, the other piece is there is no minority focused conservation organization out there for the outdoors. And we want to build and introduce new minority leadership to, you know, legislation and conservation policy.
Okay.
We need more black and brown people at the table.
So let me ask you the obvious question that people are probably sitting there. Why not just get involved in existing conservation organizations?
Well, we want to partner with existing conservation organizations.
But I mean, why can't a person from the minority community just get involved in the organizations that are already out there?
You can. I'm a member of Pheasants and Quail Forever, right? Like I'm RGS. I'm a member of all of that. But those organizations are not focused on bringing those conversations to minorities. We want to keep we as an organization want to ensure that there's a clear and consistent focus on, you know, bringing us all together, really.
Yeah. That's what I want. That's that layer I wanted to peel back and get to, so that we understand that I am probably not going to be real effective if I go into urban Cincinnati up here and try to recruit new hunters. You know, if I go to an expo up there that's a their targeted audience is the African American in the urban centers, I'm not going to be effective like Durrel Smith can.
Right. It's just literally about understanding that it's understanding approach, right? In space, in space, like I tell people all the time, and as much as I love Nike shoes and I love Jordans and stuff, you know, wish I had a pair right now, but
probably wish you had a pair of those original ones right now.
Right. Right. Like I would really love one of those.
Yeah.
But
wish I'd have put those on the shelf.
Oh my God, you'll be a rich man right now, a very rich man.
Yeah.
But you know, it's about representation and spotlight, right? Like Nike sold those Jordans, yes, but Michael Jordan sold those Jordans. You see what I'm saying? Like people saw something in themselves through Michael Jordan. And in Minority Outdoor Alliance, we want to bring that to the forefront, right? That's the thing that differentiates us. Like we want to be we're going to be very intentional about giving voice, active voice in different platforms and different mediums and, all of that stuff to make sure that people understand the impact that, all of us as a collective culture, the impact that we have on the hunting landscape, right? The fishing landscape. Like, the North American model of conservation is preserved when all hands are on deck.
Good
not
point,
just
man.
white guys.
Well,
not just white guys.
And
Us.
absolutely. And
It's
I've made that
everybody.
point. I made that point in our conversation that you aired. People in the urban centers are going to outvote rural America. We see it. We've seen it in every election.
Right.
We've seen entire states be swung based on the urban vote, the urban center vote. So
Right.
why wouldn't I want to expand hunting into the urban centers? It's
Right.
There's so many things that we can do that bring real value to people that is showcased and augmented with hunting. And so
Mhm.
it's important for our own survival to find those paths to expand our circles of influence, get out of our echo chambers, and be inclusive in what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, that is how we keep these traditions alive. Like, and the thing is, the histories are already there. They don't have to be separate, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
'cause your history doesn't have to be separate from mine. It can just be an extension. Like, you and I know each other. I would hope that one day you come down here in Georgia and like let me showcase my traditions and my cultures and my histories and stuff like that to you as you come down here. Like, this is an alliance through the Minority Outdoor Alliance. Like, what's important to you is important to me, and we're going to figure out how to work together. We're working with Pheasants Forever.
Yeah.
We're working with TRCP.
Mm-hmm.
We want to partner. We're working with Eukanuba Sporting Dog, like Onyx Hunt, like Georgia Power, Benchmade Knife Company, like all of the people that I love working with, Orvis, like all of these people have come forth and say, like, we want to help continue sharing that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's the dope part, is the idea that we're not a monolith either. Like, as an organization, we are not acting as a monolith.
Explain what you mean by that.
Put it this way, like, my hope is that one day, because we've done such a good job, like in bringing the conversation of conservation to minority communities, Black and brown communities, that like, my hope is that we have to then shift what minorities mean and solve that problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're no longer talking about racial and ethnic, differences or bringing that to the forefront. We're now talking about war veterans. We're now talking about, deaf people. We're now talking. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
we want to.
That was going to be my next question. Was you talked about history. How do we keep from tripping over the history to bring these communities together? How do we make it where somebody from your organization and feels, well, I'm trying to pick my words here, feels comfortable with going on a hound hunting adventure? And how do I get somebody from my circle of influence that feels comfortable going bird hunting with Durrel Smith?
You and I hunt together.
That's right.
And show people that it's cool. Like, come on over here. If you want to hunt with me, come hunt with me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to hunt with any of the folks in our organization, first of all, we formed our organization, as far as ethnic backgrounds and things like that. Like, we have a diverse array of board members, in our organization, intentionally, because we hope that one day America will look like that, like in the hunting community, in the fishing community. And we're always going to assume positive intent. So when when folks from our communities come to hunt camp, they know that, the Minority Outdoor Alliance, this is a partnership thing with Chris Powell and the Houndsman XP. There's that trust there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They, people from Black and brown communities know that when we work together, Chris Powell is a trusted man. You know what I'm saying? And that it happens when, again, going back to representation, podcasts like this happen, right?
You bet.
You know what I'm saying? We're working together in various capacities, and people can see that.
Right.
And that trust there is built.
Yeah, and one of those things, I wasn't texting while you were talking there. I was actually looking something up. We'd referenced it in the your episode on the Sporting Life notebook, but the declining numbers in the Black community that are taking up hunting, and how alarming that is. But let's lay that out, because not everybody's read the article. But why is it alarming? Why is that alarming?
Why is the article alarming, or why is the declining numbers alarming?
Declining numbers alarming.
Because the declining, let me get my words right. It's alarming because we were already at like something like 8%. Like, it was really low anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's alarming because, does habitat, management and wildlife, like the conservation piece, not alarm us already?
Exactly.
Well, to me, if I'm losing a certain demographic already, whose dollars and cents are going into conservation, now I'm losing money. That's alarming to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to monetize, groups, but what I'm saying is, first of all, if you're hunting and fishing, you should be donating and putting your time and energy and money into a conservation organization and things like that. First of all, that's for anybody. And so to the Black and brown communities that are engaged in conservation organizations, not having that, again, we lose money, we lose memberships, we lose ground. And then on top of that, not having a declining number of African-American people in hunting, we're losing our tradition and history.
And your own community, from you looking at your own community saying, hey, we don't need to give this up. We got a rich heritage here. Let's not give this up. So I like what you said, especially, North American model for wildlife conservation. It's all hands on deck. At this point in our history as hunters, we can't afford to lose anybody, and we need to be finding people. We need to be recruiting people. We need to be, and we can't afford to lose anybody. Declining numbers in any demographic should be alarming. We've seen it. The good thing about COVID was it pushed those numbers up. We saw a 33% increase, roughly 33% increase on license sales and things like that. But we've got to start having these kind of conversations. And you're right, Durrell. You and I need to go hunting. We need to. That's the first thing. We need to go hunting.
Yes. Come see these crazy dogs like that.
That's right. That's right. And I'll bring some coon dogs and
come on down here. We got them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And but the other thing is we've got to start having these conversations. It really is important.
It was, it's something that I think is just, at the forefront, and the tip of the spear is, activity and engagement, right? Like having people aware of what's going on, right? Like, and that's what I mean. In order for us to make, conservation policy and legislation that suits everyone, if we're talking about public lands now, this is everybody. Well, we got to have more of everybody at the table, because those decisions, like certain things, may affect green spaces in African American communities or may not affect them and aren't even being considered, right? And so what happens when, again, you're not doing the work in, where the people are at? And I understand, focusing on more rural areas and things like that. But again, like, what happens when people, it's just a lost opportunity is where I'm going.
I agree.
It's a lost opportunity.
It's one of those things that, having conversations like this stretch my brain. They make me think. They make me look at what is possible. And so you mentioned something about a seminar, a convention that your organization does.
Yep. So every year, we haven't gotten the dates for it this year yet. But last year, and every year going forward, we put on the Minority Outdoor Alliance Festival. And last year it was at Orvis Purcell Farms in Sylacauga, Alabama in October. Man, you talk about a ball. We had a good time. It's all, again, bringing the unlikely to the outdoors. And we had a great turnout, man. We had, folks from all kind of backgrounds coming there.
Did you have any houndsmen there?
Actually, we did. We had my buddies Delvin, Anthony, we had them, the Just Hounds guys. Their account is Just Hounds SSW.
That's right.
Yeah, man. So those are my buddies. So they came down and hung out with us.
Yep.
And so again, we had the houndsmen in support.
Yeah.
And somehow, it's funny, when I came back home, I ended up having that what is it, Southern Hound magazine?
Yeah, Southern Hound Hunting. Yep.
Yeah, I ended up with that magazine and they were in it. I was like, huh.
Yeah. Okay,
so now I'm a subscriber to that magazine. Great. Actually.
Great.
So
they're one of our sponsors, so I'm glad you mentioned them.
Really?
They sponsor us, and I write for the magazine.
Yeah, well, that's dope.
Yep.
So I just recently got a subscription, but I ended up with a magazine. I was like, oh, this is cool. I don't know if they sent it to me or something like that, because I know Delvin was in it at a point. Right. But yeah, man, they came down and at the Minority Outdoor Alliance Festival, it was sponsored and presented by Eukanuba. So they did an entire presentation, matter of fact, on performance dog, nutrition and conditioning. Right. Russ Kelly was there and did a phenomenal job per usual. I did a bird dog demo with my mentor, Neil Carter, matter of fact, and that went well, and just teaching folks, how to run a dog and things like that. Then we had some fly fishing demos, wild game cooking, and just a general good time. We had a clays tournament. What else did we do, man? It was so much going on and I was running around. It was just a good time. That's the general gist of everything that we had going on. We presented our scholarship.
Yep.
So
you're giving away scholarships and things like that as well.
Yep. So it was my idea, and I'd always wanted to make sure that I broke down, through my work and through my efforts, I had broke down the barriers for someone else coming in. I spent a lot of money on bird dog stuff and didn't know any better. I had dogs that I have, seen that weren't really all that good. You see what I'm saying? Yep. And just knowing, and it's no shade on anybody's dog, but people don't know what to look for when they're coming. They just don't, right? And then you get upset that you got a dog that don't point. But then also, I wanted to bring someone in who was college age and basically say, look, here's the keys to the Lambo. Let me teach you how to basically build your own platform and do what I did through my platforms, how to write, right? Get you a writing coach, get you an education in bird dogs, tradition, and they be minority kid. The next scholarship, we're doing a male and a female, and just basically want to outfit someone and build them up and build a platform, send them up the career pipeline, get them career opportunities. You see what I'm saying? Bet. if we're going to talk about, bringing people to the table, let's catch them where they're coming in.
You weren't giving them fish. You were teaching them how to fish.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so we have the Corey Rockwell Bird Dog and Literary Conservation Policy scholarship that we gave away at the last festival to Jared Unger, who is working up under me. Incredible mentee, incredible mentor now to someone else.
Yeah.
Writing, got some stuff in TRCP, basically helping build Jared up and build that platform there.
Is there room? Is there room? I hate to interrupt you. We're starting to get in a time crunch here a little bit, but is there room for houndsmen to get involved with your organization?
Man, come on in. Come on in. That's what we want to see, right? Like, come on in.
All right.
Dude, like, do you know how many more
I know it was an obvious question, but I just wanted to get it out there.
How many applicants we would get if we brought houndsmen in? Like, we are giving away $10,000 and want to build, like I said, minority kid, male, female, I don't care. We want to build someone into the community of outdoorsmen that you and I exist in, and make like influential people.
Yeah.
Come on in. You ain't got to have a bird dog. Come on in. It's all good. I'm gonna make you want a bird dog anyway.
We're gonna make you want to get another hound. Is what we're gonna do.
Look, I like I said, that first one, I didn't know what I was doing. Cut corners, right? And I ended up having to rehome a dog, and like that, I think that's pretty traumatic on a dog. I mean, he's probably fine now, but you know what I'm saying? Like that moving, I didn't know any better.
That'd be like me going and getting a pointer and thinking I was going to train a pointer. Durrell, seriously. I mean, I can read some books but I'm not going to be able to. I really liked what you said. You said some key words early on. We have talked about mentors. We have set up a mentoring program on our social media sites to try to get people who truly want to learn. One of our staff, Lauren Vranny, got into this thing late in life, and she found a mentor that brought her along. I mean, this guy. I've listened to Lauren here. Absolutely, she's cool. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, man, you just said a lot of good stuff up front, and stuff. We're singing from the same choir book here, man. I'm telling you. And Durrell, we got to get together again. We got to talk again.
Yeah.
And you got to come up and coon hunt. We'll talk off air. I'm going to put a bug in your ear, but I'm going to come down and hunt quail Georgia style.
Come down here a couple of days. Come on down here a couple of days.
You bet.
I got you.
You bet.
Yeah.
All right,
and
man.
Thank you for having me on here, man.
Hey, all right, wrap it up here. Well, what's the final thing you want to say to the Houndsman XP crowd?
Follow your dog, man.
Follow your dog. Sounds familiar. I
figured you would catch that one.
You bet. No, Durrell, I think conversations like this, exposing our audience to you, and like we did last week, exposing your audience to me, gives us a wide foundation to be able to stand up for what we do and what we believe in, and share our passions in hunting, and preserve, protect, and promote this lifestyle that we lead. And it's not a hobby, it's not a sport, it's a lifestyle. When you have to care for a dog, you have to train a dog, you have to hunt a dog. It's a 365-day a year commitment, and it has got to be a lifestyle if you're going to be successful. And
absolutely.
And I appreciate your time and willingness to share your passions, because you're living it, man.
Hey, man, thank you so much for just supporting me. I'm a big fan of the Houndsman XP podcast. And again, I'm just glad to know that we are on a unified front, my friend.
You bet.
Yes.
All right, we'll close it out.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, guys, follow your dog. What is it? What's the famous saying that y'all got, man? What is it? You follow your dog and I'll follow mine.
You're close. We can say dog. Hey, we can say dogs. We'll say it's you follow your hounds and I'll follow mine.
You follow your hounds and I'll follow mine. There we go.
All right. There you have it, folks. I told you Durrel Smith was cool. What a great opportunity we have when we go out there and we look for people that can help us share the message of hunting and the quality of the experience when we involve a well-trained dog. I hope you saw the value. I hope you liked this podcast. If you did, make sure you go over to the Apple Podcast platform and push that subscribe button. Leave us a review, just a line or two. Tell us that you're out there, you're listening, where you're listening from. It's all good, man. We want your feedback on how we're doing over here on the Houndsman XP podcast. And check out our sponsor, Dogs Are Treed. We're talking about the highest quality gear in the industry, bar none. Once you get one of these leashes in your hand or you buy one of their premium tie-outs, your mind will be made up that Dogs Are Treed knows what quality is. Also, check out their branded products such as Paws Are Protected or Dogs Are Hydrated. Whether you're running a bird dog or a hound or a side hound, you got to keep feet under them and you got to keep them hydrated. So check out Dogs Are Treed at dogsaretreed.com, and at checkout, enter the promo code HXP 20% off. And guess what? You get 20% off of your entire order. We're also dropping our new Houndsman XP hats over there right now. So check it out.